Hello and welcome to News Laundry Interviews. Today I have with me Akash Banerjee. Welcome Akash. For those of you who are not familiar with the face, he has been an anchor and a reporter on Headlines Today for 5 years, am I right?
Yep.
And before that with Times Now for another 5 years.
About 3.5.
Oh, sorry. But with Times Radio before that.
Before that, Radio Mirchi.
So between Radio Mirchi and Times Now, 5 each. He is the author of this book, Shining India, Sinking India, available in glossy paperback for
about
500 rupees. We'll talk about this book. First of all, the forward of this book is by Arnab Goswami. He was your boss, right?
Yep.
What's he like as a boss?
What you see at 9 o'clock, I guess, that's what he is. As I always say, he's one of the best editors in India. However, one of the most hard taskmasters. When Times Now started out, everybody had a lot of doubts about him, as a matter of fact. Where is he taking this channel? What is his news line? But even at that point of time, it was very clear that he wanted to set the agenda. That's what he's landed up doing, setting the news agenda. Some of it might be controversial, but I think what really happens at 9 o'clock, and I tell this to a lot of people, I think a lot of people are nodding their heads at 9 o'clock when they look at him. There's a lot of anger. There's a lot of anger. You see that when you blog about the media or the politicians. And I think somewhere down the line, somebody has to channelize that anger at 9 o'clock and direct those hard questions. I think that's what he does.
So he's written the forward of this book, and you also have little blurbs at the back by Ruchir Joshi, by Arun Puri, and also by Sagarika Ghosh, and who have highly praised your book. First of all, why did you feel the need to write a book on your... Are you looking at sharing your experience as a journalist, or telling the story of, as in what the political narrative is? Is it about journalism or is it about the story?
You know, a bit of both, but not really the political narrative, but the narrative of India. As journalists, when we go out and report a story, there have been so many occasions that you report a story and you feel very happy about reporting the story. Whether it be the festivities of India, whether it be that moon rocket launch, for example, or whether it be the matter of how really a small group of Tibetans are still trying to keep the whole movement alive. When you meet a Tenzin Sundu, who's still saying that whether be it peacefully or whether through it aggressive means, you have to keep a movement alive. Then you see the sad stories also. I mean, in a shining India, you have a sinking Bihar. That happens every year, and the media doesn't even care about it unless and until it happens to be a Kosi, which is so big that you just can't avoid it. Or whether it be 2611. So it's a journey of a reporter over the last 8 years or so in an India that continues to shine and sink in the same way. And I think that's how it's going to continue. India will remain that dichotomy it always is.
You have worked with Headlines Today and with Times Now.
Yeah.
What is the slant of each channel?
See, Times Now, it's very, very easy to define the slant of Times Now. The Times Now slant is popular. The Times Now slant is not political. The Times Now slant is the middle class sentimentalities. I would still find it very hard to believe if somebody told me that Times Now has a political agenda.
So you're saying it doesn't have it's not partial to one political...
It does not have a clear political bias. I have seen politicians...
But they just hammer at whoever's in power.
I have seen politicians from both sides, or even the left being hammered as the occasion arises. And even the most hard critiques of Times Now, I haven't come across anybody saying that, look, he's putting somebody's agenda. I think the only agenda that gets put forth at 9 o'clock and through the channel actually, yes, aggressive. Sensationalist, yes. Anti-Pakistan, yes. But reflective of the popular mood, yes. Are they sensationalizing it? In what we saw recently as far as the LOC issue, did they create an issue which was bigger than was? You know, that's debatable. Should a media channel actually harp on such an issue? If the government is silent, if the government is passive, should a media channel also remain passive? Well, that's the right to speech.
Okay, and what is the Headlines Today slant?
I think Headlines Today over the last few years has been finding itself. And what I saw in my 5 years...
Does it have a slant?
I wouldn't say. I mean, you know, Hindi, one can risk, whether it's pro-BJP or pro-Congress. I didn't personally get to see a slant on Headlines Today, because I think in the 5 years that I was there, I have seen that channel grow from, and it used to be called a kiddie channel, to a channel that is reflecting the young...
Because there was you, Shivarur...
No, even before me, you know.
I mean, Rahul, because Rahul was the young boy.
Even before Rahul, as a matter of fact, you had models initially who had been hired. into headlines today. And it was supposed to be a channel only of slick look and clean look. But that obviously did not work.
No, but you're saying it doesn't have a slant.
It does not have a slant. And I think now it's coming clearly that they also want to take this whole right to be heard campaign, if you look at it. It's a brilliant campaign. And again, I think news channels sooner or later are realizing.
Are you just being nice to your...
No, I'm not. I mean, no particular reason to be.
Okay. Do you think any channel has a slant?
I think there are channels, but I think there would be more of Hindi channels that would have a slant.
English channels?
But in English channels, I would say again, I mean, NDTV does take that brunt. I'm sorry to say this, but NDTV takes that brunt that it appears to be soft towards the government. Now, there is another side to the story. How do I get my guests on board? Do I want the top talking heads? Is there another reason why the talking heads go to NDTV? When it's a minister, the preferred channel of choice happens to be NDTV. Is it because it is a government-oriented or government-slant channel? Or perhaps they just want to be balanced and they want to hear everybody. The problem is that if you appear to be hearing a minister today, it appears as if that you are favoring him.
Yeah, look, I think everyone has a slant. Every channel has a slant. Every organization has a slant. And it's not unique to India, anywhere in the world.
The question is, are you told to follow a line? Have I ever been told to follow a line?
No, you're never told. Every organization has, a certain culture that is set up. So I think everybody has slants. Every organization has a slant. It's just that, do you think it's bad that we in India don't wear our slant on our sleeve?
Absolutely.
I mean, I personally think it is not unusual for people to think that NDTV has a pro-government slant, because even from me, and I am partial to the channel, I do a lot of work with them, but it does come across. Yet, if you say it, it's, oh, one shouldn't say it. If one has a slant, what's the big deal? Say, yes, this is my slant. Why don't organizations do that?
No.
Like, to me, I believe, for good reason, that Aaj Tak and Headlines Today will not do an anti-Modi story. I have been told by people who have worked for the organization. Well, just come on and say it.
Would you say the same thing about Times Now?
No. I'll be honest, we'll come to Times Now, but right now I just want to talk. You've been in the industry for 9 years. What is the problem if someone says, this is our slant?
Look at the American media. I mean, Fox has a very clear line. So it's absolutely okay.
So does The Guardian, Independent.
I guess we aren't not that mature enough, or perhaps there is a little bit more quid pro quo. Because who's influencing this slant? Is it an organization-based slant? Or is it a proprietor-based slant? Or is it an editor-based slant? Sometimes the slant is not there. The organization head doesn't want that slant, but the editor has it. It's not policy. Maybe when it is a policy, when it is decided in boardrooms, that's okay. But as of now, it's not.
You're saying you never encountered it?
I have never encountered it in these two organizations where I have been told not to do a story or to do a story or to do it nicely for one person or not. So I really have a problem when somebody comes and says paid media, because I really wish I was that rich then. I am not, and I have never encountered this.
So are you saying there's no corruption in media?
It does happen, but it doesn't happen as much in the national media. There has to be a distinction that has to be made between national media that has a lot of internal HR checks vis-a-vis a local media where it's a small setup, the proprietor himself is involved in it, and there are rack rates. Are there rack rates? Of course there are rack rates. But are there rack rates in a national channel? I would highly doubt it. At least the channels that are right in the top, who don't have to struggle so much for money. If they want money, they will get corporate equity. That is what is happening in the media right now. They're getting corporate equity. I don't think these channels will be able to survive by getting some donations from political parties either.
But why is there an assumption that corruption can only be politics driven and not corporate driven?
Oh, of course, corporate driven. Oh, there is a lot of talk about corporates controlling secret stakes, corporates influencing editorial policy. But I think again,
that's not unusual either. I mean,
yeah, but I think that's going to lose its relevance very soon. You've seen how powerful the web is. How much can a corporate now control? I mean, when somebody says that, oh, there was this big expose, but the corporate house got the media silenced. I'm saying, what's stopping you from releasing it on a website? And let me see which corporate can stop that. So I think that argument is going to fizzle out soon.
So, okay, tell me, do you think it is unfair if someone, a viewer of Headlines Today or Aaj Tak, says that they are sympathetic to Modi? You think that will be an unfair assessment for a viewer?
For the time that I have spent there.
No, as a viewer, would you think that, I'm not saying it happens, but see, the two things. One is it happens. One is it's perceived that way, and is it unfair for that perception to be?
I'll give an example. Modi came to the India Today conclave 2 years ago. Here is a person who has been invited to your conclave. He gave a speech, brilliant speech as usual for Modi, gave a speech on renewable energy. for 45 minutes. I mean, the kind of knowledge that a person can have on renewable energy is amazing. But after that, the first question that was asked by an Aaj Tak anchor
was about Gujarat,
was about
2002.
Gujarat. That made me believe, okay, fine. And the subsequent questions that were allowed after that were also about his secular credentials.
Okay. Do you think it's unfair for viewers to perceive NDTV as a pro-Congress channel?
If I am getting a point of view of the government, I have a problem with the government that doesn't talk. I am okay with the government that is even talking to NDTV.
When the government would, when you see the channel, the way, like I saw a story yesterday, and I was just comparing Arnab's coverage of it and NDTV's coverage of it. It's funny I should say Arnab and not Times now, because Arnab has become Times now.
Times now.
Their headline was, government dragging its feet. 11 months have passed since the story broke in Italy. An investigation has started on this whole arms gate. Government has done nothing. So their facts are correct, but it was very obviously that this government is lethargic, it's doing nothing. I switched to NDTV. There the story starting point was, government threatens to cancel helicopter contract. They are also not wrong, but by that headline it appears that it's a proactive government, it says we will cancel the contract. Both are correct, but I think it was pretty evident who was playing the story how. So,
two things. First and foremost, when a news channel has broken a story, in whichever mild, small format 12 months ago, they might have broken it and moved on the next day because it might not have got a response. It is absolutely in its right to go hammer and tongs and remind the nation that they broke the story 11 months ago, because that is what the TRP game is all about. And we'll get to TRPs also, because that is really the crux of this whole issue. I mean, my biggest problem is with TRPs, not with any media organization. So I am absolutely in my rights to go ahead and say that I broke this story first. Nothing happened at that point of time. The defense minister did not respond to the story. And now look, because it has happened in Italy, because there is prosecution happening there, our story stands vindicated.
And the government hasn't done anything. So the story has positioned the government as a lazy or consciously avoiding
or complicit in some way. Complicit, let's use the word. Secondly, you talk about NDTV. Then you ask yourself, when was the last time I saw an expose on the government? When was the last time I saw Kala Chitta, a paper being revealed? When was the last time I saw a sting against the government on this channel? Then I say, maybe a long time, I can't recall. I don't know. Tell me, you've worked with the organization closer than I have. The problem is of perception. Today, a channel that has a perception of bashing the government, asking the government for clear answers, putting up the government, basically on a clothesline, has more acceptability, because there is huge amount of distrust for the government, for the administration, and even for journalists at this point of time.
Exactly. Okay, we'll get back to Arnab a little later. I just want to talk about your book, which I have read cover to cover, in case you're wondering.
Thank God.
I'll just tell the viewers what it's about. Basically, it's divided into chapters. Each chapter is about a story. For example, the first chapter is about Akash going with a platoon of CRPF commandos and the Koya commandos into not Dantewada town, into
the forests of
Dantewada. And then there's a chapter on Ganpati Bappa festival coverage, one on Chandrayaan launch. So each is divided into a chapter where you describe your experiences of a reporter while covering that, or you just describe the story like you've done in Anna's case, which is not so much about, I mean, you have spoken about the media's role, but it's a general wrap-up of what happened there. It's not so much Akash's reporting. So that's what it's about. So I just want to tell the viewers that. Your book, every chapter is full of action or something's happening. And this is 8 years condensed into this one book. Shouldn't you have had a chapter saying, sitting on your ass doing...
On television, there is hardly a day that you're not doing anything. You see, every television is on a downsizing mode. And I have worked with organizations that have always been on downsizing mode. Times of India works on a skeletal staff strength. There may be one half of any other news channel. So every other day you're doing something. My biggest gripe with television journalism is that you can't really specialize in anything. In print, you have your beat. You just be responsible for your beat and you're taken care of. You can't follow beats in television. Most of the guys on television who have dedicated beats are guys who've actually come from print. In television, developing your own beat is a big issue, because you will be sent to some story or the other. Somewhere there is a fire, somewhere there is a rape.
But this suggests that you move from story to story pretty rapidly, whereas a lot of times you'll just be hanging out outside Parliament or sitting in office editing.
Oh yeah. Oh, that.
So sitting on your butt. That reality check also.
Sitting on your butt and waiting for a soundbite is then the right word to use. Not doing anything.
Yeah.
Because you're staking out somebody's house. You're trying to put the mic into somebody's face, for which you'll have to wait for hours. I remember sitting in front of Vajpayee's house for that was a record, 13 hours. 13 hours waiting for a bite, which did not happen. So are there moments like that? Of course. This book is the good part. This book is the good part of the good stuff that we get to do. Never for a moment should anybody think that this is what is only a journalist's life. No, not at all. Not at all.
I want to discuss your story with the Koya commandos when you went into the forests, which are Naxal infested, just for the viewers so that they have the context of what I'm talking about. There's a chapter in which Akash was one of the first few journalists. Were you the first or first few?
I think television, I was the first.
So he accompanied an entire group of CRPF commandos, not all commandos, some of them were commandos, some were just regular CRPF Jawans. It's a company.
Yeah.
Okay. They went into the forest to figure out the Naxal operation.
Jungle domination exercise is what
Jungle domination exercise. Now, my question is this. You think who your hosts are when you're doing a story influences how your story sounds. For example, when Arundhati goes in with the Maoists, her stories about all the romance of Maoism and, starry skies and people, trash her for her going over the top, which I think she does sometimes. Because she sees their side of it, because they are her hosts. When you go in embedded with uniform, do you think your reportage is also influenced?
When we went in and we did a complete story on this and we spoke to many people, including developmental, there is a half-an-hour documentary on this also. You get to understand both sides of the story. The Maoist perspective has been told well by journalists. What I figured is that, what is this whole jungle domination exercise? Is there an Operation Green Hunt? The government continues to live in denial about Operation Green Hunt in the first place.
Or about Salvajudum.
I wanted to actually go and see that exactly what is being done to counter the Maoist issues. Was I influenced? I was influenced perhaps in a negative way. Why? Because I'm like, and the chapter talks about it also, is this your battle against Naxalism, where you send 120 people, CRPF, pot-bellied, not acclaimed, not really knowing the terrain, the jungles, the language. They don't know anything and they've been pushed into the jungle. It's only the Koya commandos really who knew the terrain, the local chaps, well-trained, well-equipped. This is definitely not the way to go about the war. So yes, there is obviously a chance to get influenced, but you cannot get influenced in the romantic way, really, as you do with the Naxals when you are with them, their simple way of life. I just wanted to get a square picture of what happens when these guys are pushed into the jungle on this jungle domination exercise where the only job is actually to invite bullets. Because you don't know where the Naxals are. You are hoping that when you go into the jungle, someone opens fire at you and then perhaps you can do a good job in securing them or at least getting to know where their location is so that reinforcements come in.
So what is your position on this very hotly debated concept of embedded journalists? During the Gulf War, when they went, they said, how can an embedded journalist tell you the complete story about the war? What you're saying is the story you told us this side. The Naxal side has been told by Arundhati and others who have accompanied them.
And you actually get a clear-hand account as to what is wrong.
So everyone serves a purpose.
You can be embedded and yet you have a clear picture. The Naxals are not wrong. The government is not wrong. The poor tribals are getting stuck. Why are the Naxals not wrong? You've ignored huge areas of the country for so long. And when there is frustration, you have a certain group of people who are taking to arms and they're influencing the villagers. Are the villagers wrong? No, because they have not seen you. They have not seen your development. Why not be with them and see exactly what they can do? Are they technically wrong? No. Who's to blame?
Do you think anyone has such a balanced view on the Naxal issue? Any publication or channel? Because Arnab bashes them as terrorists.
I was reading Rahul Pandey. His stories from Bastar are also... it's good. He's defined it very well. But that is the problem. When you are with the Naxals also a lot, then you suddenly become complete sympathizers also.
Isn't that natural?
I guess.
Whichever environment we exist.
But then you are a journalist. Then you should be a storyteller. You shouldn't be a journalist. if you are going with the Naxals, I haven't sung praises about the CRPF or the work that they've done. I have actually questioned the Home Minister, saying that what is the sort of training are you giving them? They're actually given paper training. They are given paper training. This is how you're supposed to behave in a jungle. There is only one counter-Naxal school, the one in Kanker. Only one school in India teaches you how to fight the Naxals. And you're talking about the biggest internal security threat. That is how serious you are.
There's one in Manipur also.
Dedicated to Naxals.
Okay, that's just jungle warfare.
That's jungle warfare, which could be... which could be anything, which could be Alpha also. Dedicated to Naxals, only one. There were supposed to be 22 at this point of time, in 5 years. There's only one in Kanker. So I'm just saying is that it gives you an in-depth perspective. There is no reason for a journalist to suddenly land up getting attached to every story that he covers or getting attached to every person that he meets. Somehow, when you report, I have seen in Naxal reportage, is that you suddenly become sympathetic to the cause. Is the cause right? Yes. Is that the answer? No.
So you at no point got too influenced by, because when you know someone personally, the guys who you were with are names, faces, you know they have families, you talk to them. So you humanize them in your head, whereas the other is a concept who you don't know as a human being. Isn't it natural that...
The only person I think I got attached to in this story was Kichananda. The guy who is a former Naxal who left the brigade because he basically wanted to get married. And they said, boss, we're going to kill you. And that's when he ran away, because he realized that this is not the life that he wants to lead. And now is a crack commando. Unfortunately, the Supreme Court thinks that the Koya commandos are extra constitutional bodies, and the Supreme Court has now asked for
them to be relieved of duty.
Yeah, they have to be abandoned as a force. But the answer...
And does that leave them susceptible to Naxals?
It does.
So now they're left out on the open.
But they'll hopefully be taken as SPOs, special police officers.
Okay, now I want to get back to Arnab.
Yeah.
Because you have defended Arnab in your blog after Caravan did that piece trashing him.
It was not a defense of Arnab, it was...
Sure, I understand.
Get to know TV before you bash TV.
I agree. I will tell you what my view on this is as well.
Yes.
Does Arnab, when he does interviews in office, he was your boss. So let's say when someone comes for an interview with Arnab, say the nation wants to know, Mr. Akash, where you graduated. No, it's not like that, is it? Is it? What's he like?
A tone lesser. I mean, people ask me, how is Arnab in real life? He is pretty much like that. He is inquisitive. He is loud. I love him for saying that what is a newsroom which does not have shouting in it. Right. He encourages shouting. There has to be a certain amount of buzz, and that's why perhaps there is always some sort of action. Something is playing out in the ticker lines. There's news mein kya hua? I mean, I'll tell you the common consumer point of view. And this is what Aaj Tak used to do 8 years ago. If there is news and breaking news, I want to switch on to a channel. It's got to be Times Now then. Now Aaj Tak has of course come back to its DNA of Sabse Tez. It's coming back to its DNA, so it's also very fast on the news. But that is what Times Now is about. You break the news. So is Arnab like that in real life? Absolutely. The toughest boss you can imagine. Basically, he expects the same drive that he has for news to be your drive. So if you work for 6 months without a leave, no big deal. But take a week off after that, then it's a big problem. So he expects 24/7 into 365 days dedication. And a lot of people basically can't handle that.
Okay, do you find it unfair the way he's trashed by many, including, even if they don't name him directly, I've seen there's a new promo which your former colleague Rahul Kanwal has, that center stage, no more noise, no shouting, no clutter. It's an obvious reference to Arnab. Rajdeep's show has another promo, and Rajdeep keeps tweeting, no noise, only news. And so that whole, we are not into noise, we are into news, is an obvious reference to Arnab. So everyone's putting their USP as we are not Arnab, which kind of defeats the purpose of a USP. Do you think Arnab has now defined what everybody's USP should be? Which side of Arnab's North Star are you? That's Arnab. Has he become the defining point where everybody else defines himself?
I only have one thing to say to all the people who have all these new USPs coming up, is that Arnab can be very quiet in an interview if the need arises. I've seen many of his one-on-one interviews. Amir Khan in particular can be very quiet.
Raj Thakre, he was unusually quiet.
The other extreme, yes, the other extreme. Maybe because he was in Bombay and that interview was happening in Bombay. I always say this, Rajdeep could have gone hammer and tongs because his studios are not based in Bombay. On that particular day, if you are in Bombay, you might want to be a little soft. Maybe that was the reason. But what is the consumption pattern? If it was not about the noise, if it was not about the debate, then Rajdeep and Rahul's show should have been number 1. Why is it for 5 years?
No, I'm not talking about that. I'm just saying, I understand the TRP game. I'm just saying, do you think he has become the measuring point from where everybody else...
And you have to also understand that that measuring point has come only because he has understood what the viewer wants. You and I may not like it, but there is
I like it.
But, okay. That's, I mean, sometimes I don't like it. But there is this huge constituency that is getting home. Maybe they have had a bad day in office. They want to see some people being bashed. They want some questions being answered. Whether they are being answered or not is a different debate. But it's what you are projecting. This is a show where people are grilled. That is one image that has been established. And he manages to hammer... There is a clip on YouTube called Dented and Painted. I don't know if you've seen it or not. It's a remix.
Yeah.
People are remixing debates of Arnab Goswami and putting it on YouTube. Somewhere down the line, people are enjoying that. And if tomorrow the requirement comes that you only need a quiet one-on-one discussion, you need a Larry King. I'm sure he can pull that off also. There are some journalists who are only understanding what the market demands. It is not like Arnab wants to do this. But if there is a demand for it, he's catering to that demand. This is what I had said in the blog also.
Okay. And as a journalist, do you find it a little silly when you see journalists on Ndtv? I see Nidhi do that a lot, where she says, oh, we won't real like that. We are not other channels, or we're not jingoistic. It's obvious reference barbs to Arnab. Everybody makes them. You've been an anchor. Would you do that when you're anchoring?
Two things here. First and foremost, why make barbs if I have to make... I have to
You should take a name.
A, take a name, or B, be number 1. Na? Why is this? Is this insecurity? Or are you... Who are you barbing at? You're barbing at the number 1 channel for the last 5 years, according to TRP data. The number 1 channel for the last 5 years. And B, ask anybody who's managed 6 people within a time frame of half an hour. I have half an hour for a discussion. I have 6 people. The problem is also with the guests here. Nobody wants to shut up. Nobody can give 2-line answers in India. So you have to ask them to shut up. Unless and until you do that, scream, shout, they will continue. I have had it myself. I've done 9 o'clock debates, and that's why I'm telling you, it is very difficult to conduct a 9 o'clock debate in a very dignified manner with 6 people, because nobody wants to keep quiet. You have to get them to keep quiet, and perhaps to instigate them to say something that they might not otherwise. You have to do that. It's an act.
Okay, you've put in your book, when you were joining journalism, your role models were Deepak Chaurasia, Arnab, Rajdeep. Any other role models you had?
I think at that point of time, it was pretty much Rajdeep, not even Arnab, because even Arnab was back, he was doing the production work in Ndtv. He was managing more of the desk. So it was pretty much Rajdeep at that point of time. And you used to look up to them.
And Deepak, where did you?
Because he was Aaj Tak. Deepak was Aaj Tak. Even today, so when you're standing somewhere, and Deepak, acha wo Aaj Tak wale hain.
You know, people who are a little older than you, they grew up with Pranoy Roy and Madhu Trehan and Vinod Dua as their role models. True. So who do you think are the better role models?
Oh, of course. The older generation, obviously Pranoy Roy. But again, look at how things have changed. Is the game being changed? And I always say this, is the game being changed? There was a generation of Pranoy. Then there was I think there was an entire crop that came up on Rajdeep. What is the crop coming up on today? Is it Arnab? I see a lot of youngsters who actually listen to Arnab and his debate at 9 o'clock, and they really like it. The youngsters really like that sort of aggression. So maybe the next crop might just have Arnab as a name. But after that, yes, there is a little bit of a black hole. When I was contemplating on radio, then this is what Arnab also told me, that the problem with media is that there is no new crop that is coming up. Name me one person after Arnab. Arnab and Rajdeep are almost, there is an age gap, but they are of the same vintage. You know, so you have Pranoy Roy's generation, then you have the Rajdeep, Barkha, Arnab generation. After that, there's going to be a little bit of a black hole, I think.
Well, time will tell. But before we wind up, this whole TRP game, we'll just tell our viewers, television rating points are based on people meters that exist in our country, which according to your book, there are 179 million television sets.
And 8,000 TRP boxes.
8,150 TRP boxes. That means the viewership pattern of 179 million is being determined by 8,000 TV.
Yep.
And you've written a long piece on that about, you know, in the end, it's not just paid media, it is a flawed TRP system. What is the alternative, and why is such a flawed system accepted by advertisers and broadcasters?
The whole media debate can be eradicated in one day if we have a clear metric system that measures perhaps 50,000 or perhaps 1.5 or 50 lakh households. The entire debate over this media, the quality of the trash that is being meted out will be sorted. 8,000 boxes are defining what is being watched here. Where are these 8,000 boxes? These 8,000 boxes are in the same households that are watching Big Boss. I always say this is a nation of Big Boss watchers. What is the last 6 years most watched show on television? It's Big Boss.
That's not unique to India. I mean, in Norway, it's Big Brother.
Big Brother.
In UK, it's the same.
And it's the same.
In US, it's Jersey Shore.
But it's the same TRP boxes that are also measuring your news. And I am sure the metrics would be better than 8,000 for a nation of 1 billion. What is happening is that the same TRP boxes are measuring your news. So somewhere down the line, there has to be some sort of a similarity between people who are watching Big Boss and the kind of news that they're consuming. Or I'm expecting that the same people are smartening up and they're saying, no, I only want quality, unbiased, balanced news at 9 o'clock. 9:30, 10 o'clock, I will see Uttaran and I will see Big Boss and I will see Ram Kapoor. That's not happening. So the quality of the measurement is wrong. And these 8,000 boxes are defining there is no set-top box in Northeast. Why don't you have stories on the Northeast? Because there is no set-top box. Why would I bother on the Northeast? Nobody's watching me there. I mean, even if somebody's watching, nobody's metering me there. Yeah. Why should I bother? It's a completely flawed system. We should do away with it immediately. But then comes the problem of advertising. Advertisers need some statistical model. It can't be you and I as advertisers.
Can't be blind. You'd rather go with flawed metric than no metric.
I can't, as an advertiser, say, oh, you know, I like this channel. Here, check for 8 lakh rupees for you. Can't happen. What is the metric? TAM. Flawed? Yes. It's being sued also by Ndtv at this point of time. But that is the only metrics by which people are getting some sort of a measurement. And that measurement is being determined to see advertising. Advertising is what is keeping me alive. Why? Because nobody's paying for news channels. And I have said this in the book.
That if you want good news, pay for it.
You can pay for your movies. You can pay for cricket.
You don't want to pay for news.
But you don't have a paid news channel. I wonder why. I am telling you the problem is with consumption. The problem has to be sorted at the consumption level when somebody will say, I don't care, I will pay for you, give me a channel that has no advertising, I don't care, but has only good news, and it'll work. But right now, nobody wants to buy a magazine for 50 rupees.
The last question I have for you is, now you're with Radio Mirchi, which has got nothing to do with news.
Unofficially or officially? Well, the official line is, of course, the government doesn't allow news on radio. So that is the official line. Unofficially, however, you can discuss news on radio.
Sure.
So when Kasab is hanged, I can't say, breaking news, Kasab has been hanged. But 5 minutes later, when it is in the public domain, when it has been confirmed by the government, I can discuss it.
So why did you leave television news?
This book is a lot, if you see, of long format journalism. There is an acute dearth of long format journalism in this country as of now. Nobody wants to invest the kind of money to send a journalist to the spot, get some sort of reportage done from the ground. Everything is on stringer based. Let me get the footage in. I will get one reporter to stand outside in front of some trees and get a piece 2 done. A, that is a problem. B, no creative journalism is happening as of now. No creative ideas. What is happening? What are the top 3 stories of the day? I will take these top 3 stories of the day, out of which 2 will be unfortunately corruption, and I will keep hammering it with graphics, with debates. I have a problem with the debates that we have today. They're the simplest form of journalism to do. Call up 6 politicians or talking heads and ask them to come to the studio or send an OB there. Where is the creation there? That is such an escapist route. But unfortunately, people are consuming that. That's also true. People are consuming these debates. But for news channels, that is the easiest thing to do. I have to invest in nothing.
And you weren't interested in that kind of...
And I am not interested in these useless 9 o'clock debates. I've done it myself.
So if it changes, you think you'd get back to...
Of course. Of course. But right now, I find radio more challenging than television, as of now.
Okay. Good luck to you. And for all the youngsters out there, I would recommend this. I think it's a good read for someone who wants to get into the industry. And we hope you have a fruitful radio innings.
Thank you. Thanks so much.